All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the March 4th meeting of the Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission, convening at 5:02 p.m. Convening by video conference pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. This meeting is being recorded. Please be aware other people may be able to see you and take care not to share your device's screen. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Please silence all phones and devices. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment, and we are observing the 3-minute limit on public comment. Thank you for your cooperation. I am Mary Longacre, Chair of the Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Seth Engelborg.
Here.
Wendy Hudson.
Here.
Christina Jellamy.
Here.
Nat Lowell.
Here.
Topham.
Here.
And that is all I see right now. For members, I do have notes from some members that they're not able to attend tonight, so we'll see if anybody else does join us and announce them. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Leslie Snell.
Here.
Megan Trudell.
Here.
The Sheriff.
Here.
Nick Burns.
Here.
And we have 2 anticipated speakers, Vince Murphy, Town of Nantucket Sustainability Program Manager.
Here.
And Michael Gormley, owner of Nantucket. Michael, you're muted if you can unmute.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, so we have the quorum. Just a brief note on the agenda. We are meeting today. The intent was to have a meeting today and to not meet March 25th. However, the number of items on the agenda required that we do meet on the 25th with our regular schedule. So thank you all of you for participating in this second meeting in March. So can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Nat. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. All in favor, Seth Engelborg?
Aye.
Wendy Hudson?
Aye.
Christina Jellamy?
Aye.
Nat Lowell?
Aye.
Topham?
Aye.
And Mary Longacre, aye. Thank you. Is there anybody present from the public that wishes to offer a comment for an item not on the agenda at this time? I'll recognize Hillary Report.
Hi, good evening, Madam Chair. Thanks for recognizing me. I have a comment. It's pertaining, to the petition that I filed in the bill, which is at the State House, and your ongoing discussions. And I'm not going to be able to be on the line when you talk about it later. So can I just offer my comment now?
Yes, since we're not specifically discussing your petition on the agenda, if you'd like to comment on that, please go ahead.
Sure, thanks. So I just wanted to, reiterate that representing the petitioners and all the people who voted at town meeting to send this up to the State House, even though it didn't pass by a wide margin, but it did pass, and that's why it's at the State House. That I just wanted to reiterate that, I would hope to be able to support whatever you all eventually bring. And I know you're continuing to make those decisions. And I think a couple of the elements that I certainly wanted to see, and people I think generally want to see, is a member of the Historical Commission to be included, and also to have some at-large members to be elected. And I don't see that that's clearing the bar so far. So as you continue to discuss it, I just wanted to ask again that you take those factors into account. And I don't know if Chair Longacre shared with you the analysis that I did of the survey. Has anybody seen that?
That's a second topic, so just for the record. And
yeah, it's not a topic, it's just related to the Historical Commission, which is the analysis showed that it was overwhelmingly The most popular position was Historical Commission, and a lot of support on it for this group as well. So I'm not sure how it fell off the screen, but there are many reasons, some of which I wrote in my letter, which got a really not nice response. But that's my public comment.
Thank you. All right, are there any other members of the public with a comment? I'm not seeing anybody on the screen. Next item on the agenda is the appointment of an NP and EDC member to the Washington Street Working Group. And there was material in the packet for that. Vince Murphy is here to go over that opportunity with us.
Thank you very kindly, Chair Longacre, and thank you very much for having me here this evening. I just wanted to briefly introduce it. Would it be okay if I shared screens briefly?
Yeah, Nikki, have we enabled Vince to share screen?
So I don't need to, if not, but I can just show you in a minute towards the end of my brief.
You can go ahead. Excuse me, Vince.
Thank you,
you
Nikki.
very kindly, Nikki. I'll do it towards the end, just for continuity and context. I just want to give an overview. This is a town project in cooperation with the Land Bank. There's a joint MOU that was agreed, I think back in December, between Land Bank and the town administration and approved by the Select Board to undertake works in the Washington Street area. Land Bank, with support of Remain, did work to understand what it would take to scope out some improvement works in the shoreside area and on Land Bank properties along the Washington Street corridor to alleviate current and future flooding in storms, and also through extreme flooding in the future from sea level rise, to keep Washington Street as a passable street for as long as possible. This would be a form of green infrastructure to try and alleviate some of the current and future flooding. At the last work group meeting, there was a conversation about how there's potential interest for NP and EDC in this project, insofar as there's transport-related issues, and also the roadway itself is an economic corridor. The vast majority of goods and services that come and go, particularly to the downtown and ferry terminals, go along Washington Street. So that was why the work group asked that I reach out, give the opportunity to the NP and EDC to put forward a member, should they so wish. The current work is to effectively come up with a 30% design with a pretty substantial amount of public and stakeholder engagement. Meetings are typically on the first Thursday of the month. The next meeting was set for March 7th, late last week. We decided to cancel that one and move it to the beginning of April. And that may potentially give you more time to find a member if you don't come to a decision today. The meetings are held in a hybrid format. The in-person part is at 22 Broad Street in the Land Bank offices, and there's also a Zoom component should people wish to attend that way. In the email that I sent to the chair and staff, you might remember that I addressed a potential quorum issue. So just everyone's aware of that for Select Board. Does anyone have any questions on this, or should I just show? That's a good idea. I'll show the from the packet. This is the current works area on Francis Street and on the corner of Francis Street and Washington Street. That backs onto Meter. The idea would be to have a raised berm with public amenities on it, and that would hold back some of the water that might come from the harbour side and prevent flooding at this intersection, which floods quite regularly. There would also be a rain garden in the concept design that would take any of the water that comes from upland flow that flows down Francis Street towards Washington Street. This is the initial phase, and the plan would call for up to a 30% design. Over time, once this is constructed, it would be the plan to continue this type of flood remediation moving northward towards the town as far as Commercial Street on land bank properties and potentially a few town properties as well. The way that this is divided here is this is predominantly a land bank property, and the town owns a part of this property right here as well. This is about the dividing line, roughly speaking. You might know that there's the canoe rental or kayak rental area that's on the town parcel. So this is phase one of what will be likely a multi-phased approach. The current value of the works is about $500,000 to get to 30% design, and that's divided 50-50 between land bank and the town. Any questions through the chair?
Vince, I think you also mentioned that this project is expected to wrap up by the end of the year. This is
Yes,
not a multi-year commitment from an MP and EDC member.
correct and right.
All right, questions from commissioners for Vince? Or does somebody want to volunteer for the opportunity? Nat?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Vince, thank you for that brief presentation. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in being on this work group, but I also, yeah, the whole street has been a great plan for a long time, and it's finally getting close to the end, I guess is the right way to say it, with the properties and Wally's house and all the things that have happened that have been worked on for a while. And it's nice to see things start to come to fruition. And then the NISDA property and everything that's happened there. So I look forward to this process, and I would definitely be interested myself. Thank you.
Nat volunteering. Does anyone else have a question or an interest in the position?
I'd just like to say that I am on that work group, and we would love to have you, Nat, as a representative, and I will also be at those meetings. So Nat and I can collaborate to bring information back to this group.
Thank you, Christina. So, are we set to nominate Nat Lowell to take the position on the Washington Street Work Group? Take a motion to that effect.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Joe.
Second.
Thank you, Seth, for seconding. Roll call, Seth Engelborg,
Aye.
Andy Hudson,
Aye.
Christina Jelemy,
Aye.
Nat Lowell,
Aye.
Topham,
Aye.
and Mary Longacre. Aye. Thank you, Nat. Thank you, Vince.
And
Thank
if
you
I
very
might,
much.
I'd like to congratulate and thank you, Matt. Thank Nat himself. Thank
Don't
you.
leave, Vince. Hang out for a while.
All right, next item on the agenda, the Transportation Program Manager update, a recommendation from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee on a request for pedicab regulation changes. Mike, would you introduce this?
Yes, Madam Chair, let me know if I'm sharing everything appropriately.
Yes.
Okay, and just let you know that at the request of the Select Board, the Traffic Safety Work Group, and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, were asked to provide recommendations on 4 amendments, requested amendments from Nantucket pedicab service. And I'll just briefly go through those. One was to allow pedal assist bicycles. Currently, the regulation does not allow that. It only allows for human-powered bicycles. BPAC does recommend that as requested. There's a request to expand the number of licenses from 2 to 4. BPAC does recommend that as requested. There was a request to allow fees for using the pedicab service. Currently, Nantucket operates on gratuity only. So BPAC does recommend displaying a price structure, which is to be determined. We do not have actual rates that we're recommending with that, just a posting of a price structure. And lastly, there was some recommendations on extending the service area map, and BPAC does make recommendations for an adjustment of the boundary to exclude Quaker, Prospects, and Sparks Avenue, which is on the map and the next slide. On the left-hand side is the existing service area that was approved in July of 2011. On the right-hand side, outlined in blue, is the recommended service area from BPAC, which does exclude Quaker Road, Prospect Street, and Sparks Avenue, and does more explicitly exclude the Milestone Rotary, which is an important area to stay away from. BPAC does recommend at the bottom of the map a service area along Bartlett Farm Road from Hummock Pond Road to the Bartlett Farm Market. And just to summarize, again, BPAC does concur with the requested amendments on the first two items for pedal assist and licenses. There is a recommendation for displaying of price structure and on the map to exclude Quaker, Prospect, and Sparks Avenue from that map. So, Madam Chair, requested action is to recommend the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee recommendations for amendments to the pedicab regulations, and that will be submitted to the select board. And I do see Joe Topham here in the meeting that can probably, I know he appreciates me calling him out, to maybe expand on some of the discussions that BPAC had, and Michael Gormley is here to answer any questions you might have on the service. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Before we go to other input, would you also give the background on the discussion for extending the service area map from Hummock Pond Road to Bartlett Farm? I was able to watch the traffic safety work group, and they had a different recommendation. So I just want to make sure that we have that information available.
Sure. Thanks for watching that. Very diligent. Incorrect. There is a discrepancy between recommendations from traffic safety and BPAC. BPAC is recommending that corridor along Bartlett Farm Road as requested, and traffic safety was a little hesitant to extend the service area beyond the brewery parking lot, and was asking that the service be cordoned to just the brewery and to the parking lot. Due to some concerns with, I guess, the balance of the corridor from the parking lot to Bartlett Farm Road wasn't thought to be conducive for heavy bike traffic or pedicab traffic. But that was their recommendation, and there was, as mentioned, the BPAC recommendation as requested.
Thank you, Mike. I also want to note for the record, Barry Rector is joining us at 5:19. Thank you, Barry. Okay, Joe, did you want to chime in with anything from BPAC?
No, I think Mike did a good job, and thank you for bringing me on the gangplank again, Mike. No, I think it was a really good, robust conversation, really making sure that it was working well. There were no complaints in the pilot, which is great. We were a little surprised by Bartlett Farm Road, but we definitely wanted to see if it would work. So I think it's kind of a wise little corridor where you can come back and forth and pick up a lot of people quickly. And I think the pedal assist is really important to this program, and that's why it's working in its first iteration. So I'm looking forward to the summer. And I think Mike, if he wants to put anything in, I think will do a really good job of what he witnessed. He was there day to day. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. We'll go to Michael Gormley next.
I concur with everything that's been stated thus far. It was pretty encompassing of everything. I don't have a whole lot more to add. The only detail that I would add is in regard to the existing service map, where for the pilot program, this was actually extended up until the Rotary. So although this is the existing service area map for the pilot program, it was a little more expansive than this. So I just bring that up for the context that my proposed map is not as dramatic of an expansion as it may initially appear.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything else, or are we ready to go?
That's the extent of what I would like to. Everything else, I believe, has been covered.
We'll go to Wendy Hudson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to, I don't know if this was all one lump. I feel like I should recuse myself from the brewery leg of the thing. So if it's all one, then I'll recuse myself. If it's two separate parts, then I suppose it could be handled separate. I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. That is an excellent point. Let's talk about the first three requests first and then the fourth one separately, so that Wendy can recuse when we get to the service area map. So looking at the first three requests to allow the pedal assist to increase the number of licenses and to allow for either a fixed fee or a gratuity pricing structure. We'll take comments on that. Seth Engelborg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do have two comments on that. The first is that I think the idea of a fee structure is great, and I know we're not putting forth a particular pricing structure at this time, but just as a comment to BPAC or the select board or whoever ultimately is going to make this decision, I think we already have a great model in place with taxi cab pricing, you know, having fixed rate pricing that is not unique to companies. Like everyone has to share the same prices based on the service map. And I would recommend that we do the same. And the reason for that is related to my second point. It is that the request here is to grant 4 pedicab licenses to Nantucket specifically, but that doesn't exclude us from granting additional licenses to other competitors who may come into the market at other times.
Seth, let me correct you. The request is to change the town's regulations to allow 4 licenses. It's not specific to Nantucket.
Okay, so if there was 4 licenses, then any specific entity could apply for those licenses in a given year and then be granted those licenses. Is that how it works?
Mike, are you able to comment on that? I mean, this is a select board purview, so I'm not sure that I'd want to comment on the regulations, but unless, Mike, if you're familiar with them.
Those are the regulations, Madam Chair, that I'm sharing right now. And it does say that the select board shall set the number of pedicab owner licenses available in a calendar year without any type of exclusion. So it does look like that the ask is, because he was currently licensed for 2, that the ask was to change that to 4. It may not be a change of the regulation, but I believe that's what he's seeking right now. But I'm gonna lean on Michael Gormley to kind of clarify that.
Michael, yes. Do you have more information on, you know, maybe based on your conversations with the select board?
I'm sorry, you cut out for the second half of that sentence. Could you please repeat that?
Yeah, so perhaps based on your prior conversations with the select board, do you have more information about whether the select board has or wants the latitude to award licenses to multiple owners?
I think it's absolutely a market that is open to competition or other vendors. Right now I am personally applying for 4 pedicab license, and I don't think that is restricting or limiting anyone else to say then subsequently additionally apply for an additional pedicab license or 2 pedicab license. So I by no means think I have a monopoly on the market. I'm just applying for my 4. And can I now address his other point, or would you like to dive into this topic further?
Hang on just a minute. I'm trying to find, where is the specific reference to 2?
Madam Chair, the regulation says that the select board sets the number of pedicab licenses. They had set that to be 2 and then awarded both of those licenses to Michael Gormley. So
I want to be very careful that what we are talking about is a recommendation to change the town's legal language. And that is different than recommending that the select board award a license under any particular terms. So I don't see that we need to recommend that changing the town's regulations to allow 4 licenses. That's already at the select board's discretion. There's nothing in the regulation that I found just with a quick scan that limits the number of licenses. So, Mike, am I on the right track here, or?
I
help me
think
out?
I think that's a fair point. Perhaps the ask could be that the maybe not per the local regulation of 316(2)A, they're not changing that, but just in general that the number of licenses set by the select board be increased from 2 to 4.
Yeah, again, that's not a change in the regulation. That's a recommendation for how to respond to an application by anybody.
Yeah, if I may, Madam Chair, this is the whole point of my initial comment too. I don't think it's within our authority or our duty really to direct another permitting agency to tell them how many licenses to issue when the regulations clearly say it's at their own discretion. I'd be happy to make a recommendation that we increase in general, or we support in general the increase of more pedicab licenses, but it's up to them to decide how and who will receive those. Thank you.
Joe, we'll go to you too.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I agree. And I think that this, Michael Gormley's way of coming out, doing a slow roll with 2 and now 4, I think is really kind of wise. It's not, let's have 50 running around the streets. I think let's see how it goes. And, Michael's been a point on this. So I think that that's why we've just said, let's just see what happens with 4. And if there's any issues, if it's still working great, then, if he wants to come back and expand or another company comes in, then we can kind of look at that. But I think we were taking it basically because Michael was lead point on this. I don't think we would say no to anyone else. I think we'd do the same due diligence that we did on Tuk. And I think that that would be the wise way to go, that they come before and do every step that Michael has gone through and to get and seek these approvals. So I think if it's something that, if it expands, it expands. And I think that's something we just need to look at each application and each permit that comes forward. And that's kind of the way I looked at it. And the other thing is, back to Seth's point, we did recommend that they look at the taxi service rate fee, and another thing was maybe per mile, because he's not going as far. Really kind of look at something, and Michael's going to come back to us with something, concrete, that when someone comes up, it's X by whatever to get to that area. So I think that structure will be set up, and then we'll approve that, and that we'll know how that goes along. As much as he was doing it, on a tip basis last year, I don't think it was really working as well as it should. And I think now having a fee structure would be really wise and help his company grow. So that was it, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Nat?
Yeah, I just want to comment a little bit on Seth's point. I think he brought up something good. I just gotta, what am I doing here? Lower my hand. There we go. I'm on this number thing, the gratuity stuff. That's all fine. We need to make this so that I look at this as sort of like a special permit kind of thing. Like, this is new. How's it going each year? We do that. We do this with some of the permits with restaurants. It's a new thing where we have like a review plan for the fall after the summer, because I feel that I don't want to see them have to come back every year unless that's what the select board wants. I mean, we have Amy involved. I mean, people know what they're talking about that are involved in this stuff. So we have to kind of make it work for them. But at the same time, we don't want to discourage it, but we don't want to open the floodgates all at the same time. We want to kind of make it gradual and sort of organically evolve. And I think that's what's happening. So that's all I mean. I think maybe they could change the language to 4 or not to exceed or something like that to make it a little easier for it to grow, say, next year without having to come back for 6 or something like that. That's all I'm thinking about. But otherwise, I think this is great. I appreciate the effort.
Thank you, Nat. Other comments from commissioners? Seth, go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly, and I'm gonna try to fine line here and try not to speak too in depth, but it's not our role as a regional planning authority to basically advocate on the behalf of individual businesses. Like if we are supporting a fee structure, we either are going to support a fee structure that is open market and anyone can charge whatever they want, or we're going to support a fee structure that is actually set by a town authority. And so with respect to Mr. Gormley, and I don't really know you and I barely know your business, but when people are saying like he's going to come in and say what we think we should be charging and then have the town accept that, I don't really think that's how it should work. It should either be open market or a set fee structure by the select board. And in the same vein, you know, with the licenses, it should be an open market, or the select board has an annual review, which is like typical for other permits. When you have alcohol licenses or whatever license, you come back on an annual basis to update them. So I'm almost a little confused as to why we're making specific recommendations to another regulatory board is what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. I agree that we need to be mindful of the difference between supporting a request for interpretation of the regulations versus supporting a request to change the regulations. Mr. Gormley, you had your hand up. Did you want to add anything?
I would like to reply to the part of the statement regarding the fee structure. And my thought, just addressing that element of what was discussed, is, and not necessarily just for Nantucket, just as pedicab licensing as a whole, I don't think a fee structure explicitly controlled by the town makes sense like it would for a taxi cab. I think a more comparable setup for how the tuk-tuk is would be like how the town regulates the limousines or the limousine buses, party buses, things of that nature, which is for a handful of them, they post a price, but then we'll also say call and then we'll discuss the price. But it's something that is explicitly agreed upon before the service is conducted, rather than having to change the prices through the different seasons and peak times and slow times, etc.
Thank you. Christina John.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a point of clarification back to the question that you and Seth are going back and forth regarding the second recommendation as to the number of licenses. What I'm hearing is that since there is no specific number of licenses in the regulations, that we're not requesting or recommending a change to the license, I mean, to the bylaw. And so therefore, should this be struck as something that we would recommend?
Yeah, thank you, Christina. I think we're going to take these one at a time. We haven't even discussed the first one, and I have a comment on that.
Okay.
But I think that, you know, based on the conversation, our recommendations are going to vary from what's on the screen, and it would be best to make those very, very clear as to why they're different. And probably the best way to do that is to take these one at a time so that we can tailor a motion without, you know, writing a novel. So I'm gonna introduce the first recommendation, allowing pedal assist bicycles. Can we scroll to the actual regulation for that? And can you maybe zoom in a little bit, Mike?
Oops. I don't know if I can.
Okay. I have it on my own screen, so I can read it, but
Okay.
so 316-1 definitions, pedicab, a bicycle with 3 or more wheels, which is designed to transport passengers on seats attached to the vehicle, which is operated by one person, which is powered solely by human power, and which is used for transporting passengers for hire. And so the request is to strike the words, which is powered solely by human power. And having done so, then you would allow the pedal assist. My concern is that you allow any other form of locomotion that, meets this definition. And if the intent is simply to allow the pedal assist are they tricycles, I think, as operated last summer, then I think that's what we should recommend for language here. So my preference would be to edit the sentence to say, which is powered solely by human power or by a pedal assist system, provided that a governor is on the vehicle to limit it to 15 miles an hour. So we're including a specific additional mechanical situation. I just think if you strike, which is powered solely by human power, it's too vague and probably doesn't preserve the original intent of the regulation. Joe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the things we talked about was the reason for the pedal assist is so when the vehicle gets within vehicle traffic, it can do the max speed limit of 20 miles an hour in town. So that is what is, I think, helping the police not getting any, complaints about the vehicles. They're moving at a rapid pace and they're keeping up with traffic. So I think that's why we put the restrictions on the pedal cab, and I think that's the max rate. Michael, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is 20 miles an hour, which is all in town. So that's why we talked about this and what the speed was and stuff like that. And I think Mike Burns even mentioned that anytime you go over 20 to 30 miles an hour on an e-bike, it's really excessive. It's a crazy rate of speed. So we try to just keep it to the town top speed limit, and that's where we left it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Joe. Can I go to Mr. Gormley to clarify? I may have misunderstood, and so I definitely want to be corrected if I did. Are your bikes going 15 miles an hour as a top speed or 20 miles an hour as a top speed?
The current governor is 15 miles an hour.
Okay. So that's why I
But
put 15 in my question.
right, and that was decided from the BPAC recommendation for the pilot season in 2023. So I don't see any downside to increasing that to 20 miles an hour. I see zero need to go beyond 20 miles an hour, but I think up to 20 miles an hour would, could at times be of use for the flow of traffic. To that point also, I found just such unbelievable congestion in town. So I was almost never even hitting the 15 mile an hours anyway.
Right. So your bikes are capable of going 20 miles an hour, but were limited by the select board conditions last year to 15. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Thought we had another hand up. Was that Joe? No, Wendy. So thank you, Wendy.
It was me briefly. I just wanted to clarify, like, Madam Chair, I think you were saying you were not against the assist. It was more just like the way it was, but striking that sentence would make it open to being like a moped or a motorcycle, like anything like that. So I think that modification I would definitely support, so it's not as open-ended. As to the 15 to 20 miles now, I guess I'm sitting back and thinking about it. I don't know if we need to make that suggestion. 20 starts to sound a little fast to me, so I do like the 15. And I think just in general, this whole thing is such a win for the community, and having these bikes is just a great thing. So I want to make sure that I convey my support for the spirit of the whole thing. We'll make it all work, whether it's us or the select board that refines a few of these points. I just wanted to pipe in support of the whole thing. Thanks.
Okay. Do we have any other comments on 15 versus 20 for the speed limit on the bikes?
Madam Chair, just so I make sure I capture that correctly, you would suggest adding the language powered solely by human power or by electric motor with a maximum speed of 15 miles an hour?
Yeah, that, if that's appropriate language to describe the devices, yes. And I'm open to 15 or 20, depending on how other people think that that should be implemented. The point being, I just wanted to make sure that there is, that there remains in the regulation, the idea of a limit, not a free-for-all. So any comments on 15 versus 20 for our recommendation?
I prefer the 15 because that was the max speed in town, so that was my reasoning. Just in case he did get out of, you know, the core and he was able to, you know, get moving along, I think that he should be able to keep up with traffic, not, you know, go over the speed limit, but do the max. That was the discussion at BPAC. So I think that that was kind of the intent of our recommendation for that, to be at least 20 going forward for 2024 and 2025.
So Joe, do you want to make a motion then on this first
So,
regulation?
Madam Chair, to allow the speed limit to be 20 miles an hour.
Well, more than that. Mike, do you want to read it out with the 20 and then Joe can just say, yes, that?
Let me go back here. A definition of a pedicab, a bicycle with 3 or more wheels, which is designed to transport passengers on seats attached to the vehicle, which is operated by one person, which is powered solely by human power or by electric motor with a maximum speed of 20 miles an hour, and which is used for transporting passengers for hire.
Okay, so Joe, you want to make that motion?
That is my motion, Madam Chair.
Can we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. Seth, you have a comment?
Yes, I have a comment. So my understanding is that pedal assist is being asked for, which is a motor that is assisting a pedal drive operation, but how we're writing the regulation now, you theoretically could have a vehicle that didn't have pedals at all, just had a motor. So I don't know if that's in the intent of what we're trying to do. You could just say, oh, it's powered by a 20-mile-an-hour electric motor, and we're not having pedals at all. So it doesn't sound like that's what the operators want to do either, but that is how we're kind of describing it in the regulations. Thank you.
Right, and Seth, the regulations are not specific to a particular operator, so you have a very good point. That's what I was trying to get out when I asked if that was the right way to describe the vehicles. I'm not familiar with the correct language. Mike, are we able to insert, the phrase pedal assist in that? And Joe, do you want to accept that as a friendly amendment?
I can easily have pedal assist electric motor, just to be specific.
Yes, thank you. Joe?
Yes, Madam Chair, I will accept that.
Okay, any further comment on the recommendation for the change in the definition of a pedicab? If not, we'll go to a roll call vote. Seth Engelborg?
Aye.
Andy Hudson?
Aye.
Christina Jelemy?
Aye.
Matt Lowell?
Aye.
Gary Rector? Barry, you with us?
Oh.
All right, Barry's on mute, and I haven't heard from him yet, so we'll abstain. And then Joe Topham?
Aye. And I just looked up in the dictionary, it says pedal cab is a small pedal operated vehicle serving a taxi in some countries. So it's defined as a pedal operated. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very long your eye. Thank you.
Some countries.
So that was the first one. The second one is to allow for 4 pedicab licenses. And I think based on the discussion, we are not recommending that the regulation be changed because there's no need to change the regulation. But if somebody wants to make a motion to support Nantucket's request for 4 licenses for 2024, I think we could make that motion or open to discussion on other alternatives. Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't make that motion, but I do have a motion. It is for the NP and EDC to advocate support for an increase in the number of pedicab licenses for 2024.
Thank you, Seth. I think that is a good motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you, Nat.
Yep.
Any further discussion on that? All right, roll call vote. Seth Engelborg,
Aye.
Wendy Hudson,
Aye.
Christina Jelemy,
Aye.
Nat Lowell,
Aye.
Douglas Barry Rector,
Aye.
Barry, and Bill Topham,
Aye.
and Mary Longacre, aye. All right, third one, allowing fees for pedicab service versus gratuity. So the request here is simply to change the regulation to allow, I believe it's either form of compensation. And then there is expected to be further discussion on exactly how that compensation is calculated. Do we have a motion in this respect? Or how to change the regulation?
So moved.
No, I need, sorry. I need something else.
Thought that might do it. I would make a motion to allow for expanding that. Oops, it went away.
So I think we can take allowing fees for pedicab service as the motion, just as stated in the presentation. Mike, will that be satisfactory?
Yeah, and just to be specific, under item P on the regulation, the statute or the regulation says that operators shall charge no fare. So I believe the ask is to change that to we'll have a price structure and not be working off gratuity.
Yeah, I'm a little unsure that the prior discussion at BPAC and at traffic safety was for price structure only. There was some discussion of certain circumstances would be appropriate for a price structure and other circumstances would be appropriate or preferable for a gratuity. So I'm going to ask Mr. Gormley to clarify what he is intending and asking for here.
So essentially, I think it's best to largely operate off of a price structure. It was definitely frustrating for customers this past season when I told them that I was not allowed to charge them. It was up to them. So it definitely makes the most sense. That being said, I just don't like a rigid price structure that I'm regulated to, because the price changes per demand. So like right after dinner, there's a ton of demand, while generally speaking, when a lot of people are sitting at dinner, there's far less demand. Or even daytime to nighttime, there's a huge shift in demand. And I want to be able to get as much business as possible. So I want to be able to lower the prices. And then I don't really see the point for why it'd be regulated on if I were to charge more, because then the customer can just choose to not go through with that. They would say, that's out of my price range. No, thank you. So I would be happy to create a new condition that's saying, like, if someone is in need of help, or like can prove a real need for transportation, then there's an obligation to help them. But other than that, I see no reason why it should be regulated any differently than a limousine or a party bus or something of that nature.
Okay, so I think the request that's in front of us is simply to amend the regulation to allow for a price structure where right now that is not allowed. The rest of it is really outside our purview as to how much is charged and how it's charged. Mike, would you?
So I guess
I'm sorry, Mike Burns, would you agree with that before we continue with the discussion?
Short answer, yes.
Okay. Mr. Gormley?
Yes, sorry for my dragged out response. So my more abbreviated response is I would like to just have the ability to charge rather than, so I don't know if that would change the wording, like omitting the word structure to just saying can charge, or even just omitting that whole requirement that it is based off of gratuity. I don't really see any need for any regulation regarding my charging at all.
Madam Chair, I'll just go back to the regulation under P, and it says the operator shall not charge a fare. So I believe the ask is to charge a fare. And the balance of this operator shall be paid through voluntary payments. I guess the idea would be to change that. And just to expand on that, the feeling of BPAC, and Joe Toppa might be able to agree on this, the feeling of BPAC was to actually have a fare structure posted, and it was kind of made clear to me as the staff reporting to BPAC that I communicate that we want something posted because we want that fare certainty, and to avoid any type of equity complaints that might come as a result of somebody being charged more than somebody else. So that's why we have the fare certainty in place with fare structures. If that posted set of rates changes, it should change for everyone and not be on a situational basis.
Thank you, Mike. Seth?
I have a motion if you'll allow it.
Can you be more specific, Seth?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to change Article P here to say owners or operators shall be allowed to charge a fare for pedicab service, but nothing in this section will prohibit them from accepting gratuities.
Thank you, Seth. So
Second.
that's a motion from Seth. Second, was that Joe? Okay, any further discussion on Seth's motion? Mike, were you able to capture that from Seth?
Thank goodness the meeting is recorded, but yes, I did get that.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All right, we'll go to a roll call vote. Seth Engelborg,
Aye.
Wendy Hudson,
Aye.
Tina Jellyby,
Aye.
Nat Lowell,
Aye.
Gary Rector.
Aye.
Joe Topham,
Aye.
and Mary Longacre, aye. Okay, that brings us to extending the service area map, and Wendy Hudson is going to recuse from this discussion. So can you put the map up again, Mike? The BPAC recommendation is as shown on the map, the lower portion in red, and referring to the route from Hummock Pond Road to Bartlett Farm. Any discussion on that request? If there's no discussion, do we have a motion? Seth?
I have a question. So this is intended that just the like it'll be a back and forth route. Pedicabs will be posted at that corner intersection and then go down Bartlett Farm and then go back. But how are they going to get to Bartlett Farm in the first place? Are they allowed to drive on the street without service passengers, or they have to be trailered there, or what?
Yeah, so Mr. Gormley, would you respond to that?
Yes, I can easily fit 2 of the tuk-tuks in the bed of my truck, so I would just transport them out there and drop off in the permitted service area zone.
So Seth was correct. They would just be going back and forth between those 2 endpoints. They would not be on Hummock Pond Road traveling from town. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, and let me clarify that there are 2 changes to the map. The BPAC recommendation in blue for the town area and the BPAC recommendation in red for Bartlett Farm Road area. And we're taking those together because that's the way it's been requested. Any further comment on the changes to the service map? All right, do we have a motion?
So, Madam Chair, to modify the requested service maps and the lake on Bartlett Farm Road.
So modify as recommended by BPAC.
Correct.
Do we have a second for that motion?
Second.
I got Nat lighting up, so I'll take his second. Any further discussion? We'll call vote. Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Wendy is recused. Christina Jellyby.
Aye.
Nat Lowell.
Aye.
Gary Rector.
Aye.
Topham.
Aye.
And Mary Longacre, aye. All right, I think we are done, right, Mike? Or is there more?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll have more at the end of the month.
Mr. Gormley, do you have a parting comment?
Yes, just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to go over this, and thank you, Madam Chair, for including me on this agenda.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is the discussion of the membership. In the packet was my attempt to summarize the state of this discussion to date. It is simply a reference guide. Are there any members who have a particular question or topic regarding membership that they want to begin the discussion with? Nikki, are you able to put that reference up on the screen? And Christina, go ahead.
As you all know, I'm very new to the process and have not been privy to all the back conversations. I apologize if I haven't caught up on all past meetings. I have heard the conversation or understand that you did a matrix to kind of get everybody's input as to who should be part of the commission. I just wanted to address or understand if somebody could explain Hillary's question regarding the election on the elected versus appointed for the at-large. And if somebody, if somebody recommends taking this offline, I can talk to somebody offline about that. Was just wondering the story or backstory, pros and cons, or reasoning for not having an elected. But again, if I should come offline, I'm happy to do that.
That's an appropriate topic for discussion, so thank you for introducing it. Seth, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I mean, I can't speak definitively for the commission because I don't think we've actually got to a place where we've decided that these seats are necessarily appointed or elected. That's what we're doing here tonight. I will say, from my personal opinion, I've said this many times before, it is significantly harder to get elected to town office or to any office really. This is a regional planning authority than it is to be appointed. You have to be elected, you have to get a large number of signatures, you have to campaign, oftentimes you have to expend funds, you have to put in a significant amount of effort, whereas an appointment is just writing a brief application to whoever the appointing body is. So I certainly understand the concerns about election versus appointment, that, you know, if we have elections, it's somehow more democratic. And that very may well be true. But if we were trying to do a good job getting equitable participation from our community, appointments are a significantly lower bar than elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Other comments from commissioners? I will add one of my own. Part of my concern is finding people who are willing to run, you know, for all of the reasons Seth mentioned. Nantucket does not have a great history of highly competitive races, election races. So, you know, I just have a general concern about, you know, asking the public to find 3 more people willing to run for office. I think that part of the motivation, and I'm speaking from my own understanding, I'm not trying to speak for any of the proponents of a change, but part of the motivation was seeing the potential for conflict between the NPDC being able to appoint members to its own body. And I think that that is mitigated by the fact that we are expanding the number of members and we are expanding the breadth of where they come from, so that there's a greater interest in, you know, or I should just say there's a lesser ability for groupthink because there's a much more diverse body. So that is part of my thinking as we talk about elected versus appointed for the at-large members. Other comments?
Yeah, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm sorry. and press my hand. Yeah, I mean, everything that everyone said so far is true. There's a lot of different reasons why this kind of needs to stay the way it is. We have, first of all, I'll just bring up something that I haven't said, is we have boards and commissions on Nantucket that are appointed to have a lot of regulatory power, like the Concom is appointed. ZBA is appointed. The Airport Commission is appointed. These three members, it's a very diverse, sort of natural, diverse selection process where people sort of, stay on for a while. Some people stay longer and others don't. And it sort of migrates by itself. And then you have your elected 5 planning board members, even though we're looking to change that, but I'm just talking just in traditional sense of what we currently do. And you have the one county commissioner, and you have the housing authority, which is also elected. So it's a good mix. And to change that to elected, I mean, you'd have way less people wanting to do it. So you'd actually make the amount of people that would be interested would be smaller. The other reason too is we're not regulatory, so it's an unnecessary. You have a situation similar to what happens sometimes with SHAB, in my opinion, where you have a board that really should be appointed. It's hard to, people don't want to go through that process. So that's my fast list of reasons why this needs to stay. That part of it needs to stay in its current makeup. Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Nat. We'll go to Barry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. I'd like to touch on 2 areas, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave in a few minutes. You can tell by the way I'm dressed that I'm not in my home here at the moment. I've got another meeting coming up. The first area is at the at-large, and there's 2 things I'd like to address with that. Instead of those being 3-year terms, I'd like the board to consider that each one of those is a 1-year term, so that the playing field is leveled, as it is true for anyone else who's coming on the board from other commissions. That's my first point, is instead of having them sit there for a 3-year term, let's reduce it to a 1-year, and they can reapply just like everyone else will have to. The second thing I want to bring up under that is, as opposed to the NRPC being the appointing agency, and I think that's where the whole idea of an election take place, because there were concerns that it was rather a myopic process from some individuals in the community, is to, again, make each one a 1-year term, have the NRPC appoint 1 person, town moderator appoint 1 person, and then the FinCom, be it the chair or the board itself, appoint 1 person to us. So that's the first points of consideration I'd like this board to at least think about and see what their thoughts are on that process. And then I'd like to go to the planning board afterwards. Thank you.
Barry, since you're time constrained, do you want to give your second option for others?
Yeah, I didn't want to front load too much in, but yeah, let's just go to the planning board for a few minutes. Real quickly, instead of the planning board hashing out who's who on the process, and I had sent this out to you all, I think in a previous thing that I did, was to have the planning board automatically appoint its person in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th years of their 5-year term. What that basically means is the person who just got elected to the planning board will not be serving on the NP and EDC. The person in their 5th year who's going to be outgoing will not be serving on the NP and EDC. What that does essentially is that it will make it so that once this is in play, there'll be a 3-year term that each planning board member will do. And the other thing about that is it gets it out of that. Where I want to go here. I think it just makes it a little bit easier to track with who's doing what with it as well too. And when, if term limits or anything else ever comes up, you've satisfied that requirement because you're only on there 3 of your 5 years as well. So instead of letting the planning board hash it out, I would make it so that one from the 2nd year, one from its 3rd year term, and one from its 4th year term. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Barry. So let's continue the discussion on the at-large, and then we'll go to Barry's question about the planning board. So comments on the at-large members again. I have Joe's hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will, how do I say this? I did both. I went before the select board and, like Seth said, put in an application, and then I also ran for my planning board seat. I don't know if one's easier than the other, but I will say that I think the process to get, before the select board and interview with all the 5 members of the select board, I found much easier. So I think it works better. I think what everyone's saying is that we can, put out the word that we're looking for someone, and I think that that's more important. But I do think the process of the money and campaigning, I think the money becomes a little bit more arduous than anything. But the campaigning and all the rest of that, I didn't find it any different than going before the select board. But I do think that this process and this organization should be appointed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Joe. I'm going to add a little bit of information. The requirement to be elected recently changed. I think before it was 10 signatures and now it might be 100. I don't know about the numbers for sure, but it was recently changed to be much more, many more signatures required in order to get on the ballot. So just make sure everybody's aware of that change as they think about this. And then I'm going to offer a second comment, which is that if at-large members were elected, I cannot see them all having to run every year. I'm not sure that was Barry's intent with his suggestion. But even if they aren't elected, being appointed every year, I begin to worry about continuity. And that's more a comment for the entire slate, not necessarily just for the at-large members. So I will go to additional comments, having said my piece. Seth?
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few things that haven't been said here related to at-large. We had a discussion about, I know this is just a reference guide here, but we had a discussion about how we can actually get at-large members to represent diverse backgrounds in terms of identity, but also sector. And I know we can't necessarily constrain future commissions to act in a specific way, but I think we can update our application process a bit to help do this. So right now, it's my understanding that we put out a request for applications, and people essentially send in what they think would be right to meet that application request. But I think we could actually have more of a specific form that that stated we are basing this decision on technical skills and also geography of sector and identity, and please some questions describing kind of not only what exactly you can bring to the commission in terms of your skills, but what can you bring in terms of who you are. So I think that's just a comment, but updating an application to hit on those points will be beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Christina?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and everyone else for the backstory and the explanation of the appointed versus elected. I definitely hear have been elected to the land bank, so I understand that process, as well as appointed to this commission. So I do hear those arguments and supports for an appointed. I wonder if there may be a compromise or kind of a balance going toward what Barry had said as far as who actually appoints the at-large people and whether there would be consideration of either different groups to be appointing to get some diversity, or at least eliminate any concern of it being, as you said, like-minded group. So just something to consider. I don't have a suggestion. It's just a thought.
Thank you, Christina. Seth, is your hand up again, or let me go to Nat first.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Seth, because I took my hand down, but I was just about to press it up again. But go ahead.
I just have a very technical question about Barry's proposal, I guess, in that I'm not necessarily for or against it. I really don't have any opinion, but how would that work? Would somebody specifically write an application to the body that they're trying to be appointed by? And what if they wrote 3 applications? So what if they wrote an application to the seat for the planning commission, an application to the seat for the town moderator, and an application for the seat to the finance committee? Like, I guess I'm not really against it. I need to understand how we're actually going to do it logistically. Thank you.
I'm going to take advantage of the pause. I don't see Barry. I think he might have had to. I'm looking at the town's website, and right now it says 50 signatures of registered voters required. I just wanted to clarify, if I didn't want to give the wrong previously. Barry's back. So Barry, if you heard Seth's question, were you able to respond?
I did, and I think the easiest way to handle it would is for the NP&ED, for the Nantucket Regional Planning Commission, to basically accept all the applications. 1 or 2 ways to deal with this would be to just do it in a daisy chain fashion. In other words, we get to select our candidate first. Maybe the town moderator now gets the balance of them and chooses from one, and then from that, the FinCom chooses from one. But I don't see trying to submit 3 different applications, because the worst part would be that, let's say the town moderator and us are right on the same page and we both say the same person. Now we're back to square one. So I think we should be the collection agency. It can, like I said, it can very quickly daisy chain down from there. And then there you have it. And like I said, it removes that sense of us being, the master of all here. It removes that worry of being myopic in the selection process. So that's why I thought that would be another way to handle it. Thank you.
Barry, have you spoken with the town moderator and the finance committee about this proposal?
Not personally, no, but with the town moderator, there was a discussion that was had way in the past about it. And with the FinCom, I think my assurances would be pretty good that, even the chair, which is Denise, would be willing to participate in that process. But there's been no formal discussion because we really haven't even begun to formalize this process yet.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Now let's get back to you.
Yeah, sorry, Mary. I just want to go back to sort of the simple way of looking at all these things. To go back to changing the commission, we've been pretty solid on the things that we know we need to change. And the at-large piece is the one piece that works pretty well the way it is. Not saying that we don't need to do anything with criteria of a specific applicant. I'm open to that. I think that's a good change. But for example, Mary, you might not be here if we were elected, right? We've talked about this ourselves together. Wendy, an unbelievable addition to the commission with her off-island ability to be going to some of the conferences and different things that she's been able to do. Having it appointed allows for, I just keep saying this over, but it is the truth. You get a natural, diverse selection of people that have an incredible amount to offer but not necessarily would go through that process of running an election for this little position here that does not rise to the level of an elected position, in my opinion. The FinCom is appointed. I didn't think of that, and Barry bringing up the FinCom. The FinCom is appointed. Like, look what they're involved in, and they're appointed. Like, so I just don't see these 3 seats needing to have a lot of change. I'm open to, again, as Seth brought up, I believe he said it a minute ago, about having someone that's a specific criteria for say one of the positions. I can see that. The other one about the appointed is the institutional position, the Jack Gardner type position, which I brought up early on. That's important. That someone like him, like Donald when he was on before Zoom, I mean, it's important to have someone that's been around a long time that wants to serve on this commission to be able to do it without a big process. So I just want, keep those things in mind when we're trying to change something maybe a little bit too much. Because it has worked very well for a long time, this one piece. So that's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Nat. Barry, I see your hand up.
Thank you. I appreciate you entertaining this. Hopefully you'll discuss the planning board as well too. I am going to bid you all a fond good night and thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Barry.
When this question first came up, I did a little research, and one of the things that I found was from the Edward Collins Center for Public Management at UMass Boston, framework for considering elected and appointed offices. And it gives a number of criteria that help you evaluate whether a position would be better suited to be elected or better suited to be appointed. If there are significant policy-making responsibilities, it's more likely to be better suited to be elected. The NP&EDC is an advisory board, better suited to being appointed. And there's a list here. It was my feeling that this list supported the at-large positions being appointed, and I'm happy to share this list out. But just to flesh out more of the discussion that Christina asked for, I'll offer that. Any further discussion about at-large? Is there anything we want to change in the way that this is summarized? Again, this was just intended to be a summary of the discussion to date for reference. It's not, not something that's unchangeable.
I may as well ask one more point because Barry brought it up. I'm not in favor of changing this to 1 year. I just think that I do like the way it is with 3. It's just too much stuff going on to try to make it all these positions every single year. And once we move on to the planning board piece, and I see we have that up there per year, that was one of the reasons that I thought that was a good idea, is because the county, the Conservation Commission, the Housing Authority, all work perfectly since I've been on here for 20 years. There's never been an issue with their body appointing their member every year. It's sort of like almost a tradition that's on the agenda with a letter, etc. And that's one of the reasons why I thought that the planning board members would do the same thing every year, not a 3-year, not a 5 or whatever, just simply every year. There may be a planning board member that wants to do something different for that year and maybe wants to get off the commission. And I think that's a really good, healthy thing to have rotation. So I just wanted to throw that in. I just think that the at-large is the one part of this commission that works without any issues, honestly, except the part about the the change about possibly a specific criteria for maybe one. I'm open to that. I think that is a worthwhile discussion, but the 3 years I think needs to stay the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Nat. We'll go to Seth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just in relation to this criteria that I was talking about, so I actually am recommending something else. I'm not recommending that we reserve a specific seat for a specific criteria of applicant. I'm just recommending that we change our language and our application process for all 3 of these to help promote and support sort of diversity of membership. That's all I'm asking for. And then just in relation to the 3-year term, so staggered. So that to me means that the initial appointment, there'll be somebody serving a 3-year term, somebody serving a 2-year term, and somebody serving a 1-year term. And then at the end of that, we'll have all 3-year terms. Is that correct?
No, Seth, Megan or Nikki, can you scroll down? So the transition question is a separate question. And the suggestion that I captured here was that with the at-large members would continue in their current positions if we were not making any changes to how they're appointed. So if whoever is currently serving year 3 of their 3-year term would be replaced the following year, whoever's got 2 years left would be replaced in 2 years, whoever's just in their first year would be replaced in 3 years. So, I mean, potentially we could start fresh with a complete clean slate, but that transition mechanism is separate from the selection mechanism, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. We can scroll back up. So the term staggered here means that if it's a 3-year term, one position changes every year. That part is correct. Wendy?
Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Can you refresh my memory? Have we settled on the 13 as the number, or are we still?
We
No.
haven't settled technically on anything.
Yeah.
This was a summary of at the point where we left the discussion, and
I mean, it's very hard to know like when we stop, when we land on anything. I mean, something that occurred to me, like, as you remember that I did advocate for a historic viewpoint, as being such an NHA person. So I think it bears thinking, like, or perhaps we could have 4, if we move to 15 as members, we could consider some sort of a historic seat. We could also have 2 elected at large and 2 appointed at large. If we, I do like an odd number, of course. I don't know where we stop talking about that. I don't want to like bring up things that somehow have been settled, but if they haven't been settled, to Christina's point, let's keep thinking, why are we, like maybe there's a way we could do both. We could have a couple elected for if there's people in the community that really want. Seth, I took that point about the equity quite, there is a barrier to being elected. And Mary, Madam Chair, I appreciate the advisory commission, and I do kind of think, I too tend to be swayed by much of the conversation this evening that appointment is fine for this, but it's not all or nothing, I guess, was the only little twist I wanted to contribute. Thanks. Thank you, Wendy. And just to repeat, if we want to talk about additional seats, that's certainly something that we can talk about for any particular reason. It doesn't have to be restricted even to things that we've already talked about. I had a thought that I wanted to add, but I have lost it. So Seth, your hand is up. Let's go back to you.
Thank you. And I just really want to, I guess, continue my argument on the equity piece a little bit more, because I think it's important for any of the public watching or who will watch this later, what I really mean. And I'm not just talking about equity in terms of conditions of race or sex or identity or any of those things. Simply having to go through all the processes to get elected that we talked about today, it takes time. You have to go pull the papers, You have to go around and get physical signatures. It's restricting people who work full-time jobs and, don't have time to do that. So it's not just like a diversity of the typical things people are thinking of. We want this process to be fair, but we also want it to be the easiest barrier of entry, or a very easier barrier of entry for people to serve, because the more we reduce that barrier, the more participants we have, the more diverse participation we have, and the more continuity we're going to have. So I strongly believe, I mean, I will die on this hill. I think that we need to reduce the barriers to service, not just in this commission, but in all aspects of government as much as possible. That's really where I'm coming from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. And I'll add to that. The whole idea of an at-large position is that any member of the community could participate. And I think that's exactly what Seth is talking about. The harder we make it to participate, the less we are fulfilling the intent of the position. Nat?
Yes, I just wanted to just clarify now. I understand. Before Seth talked the last time, just then, I understand now what he's talking about. I totally agree with changing the language of each year, each seat. I didn't catch that at the beginning. So that's good. I'm totally fine with it. So thank you, Seth, for the clarification. Okay, so thank you. That was good.
Thank you, Nat. Christina?
I would just to go along with what Seth's saying, and Wendy, I really do hear the appreciation for the appointment and the the breadth of people that you may get, because it's not so as complicated. But I will go back to this idea of diversity and getting a large diverse group. And what I'm seeing by just looking at this list, when you see 3 at large appointed by the same group of people, that same group of people are going to appoint 3 people, and they're going to always be kind of looking for the same thing, where I do support the idea of those 3 at large, while being appointed, possibly be appointed by different groups. And I think that would create more diversity. I still think they can be at large. I still think they can be appointed, but I'm concerned or want to be sensitive to the perception that those 3 at-large people are appointed by the same 3 by the same group. So that's all.
Thank you, Christina. I would just add that if we're considering appointing bodies other than the NP and EDC, they should not be bodies which are also on the NP and EDC. There was a previous suggestion that county commissioners could appoint. I don't think that really achieves the purpose that's being looked for. So I'll just add that. I did remember my other comment that Seth sparked. I think it's very interesting to develop a prioritization list for being selected as an at-large member. In some ways I'm in favor of that. But I think that the consequence of that is that we would no longer be voting to accept a member. We would have to use some kind of scoring system, and whoever scored the highest would then automatically be accepted. I'm not sure that's a direction we want or need to go in, but I'm just thinking of the consequences of introducing selection criteria is that then you have to use them if they're going to be meaningful. So that's something to think about as we consider that. Other comments, specifically on the at-large seats before we go to the planning board? Seth?
No, sorry, it's not on at-large.
Oh, okay. I want to make sure we continue to discuss at-large if there is any further opinion to be offered. So let me get a sense. Do we think we're moving away from what is displayed on the screen? Should we just say for further discussion, 3 at-large seats or at-large seats, quantity unknown, the rest unknown? It seems like we have a lot of different options in front of us. And I don't want to be accused of picking one and ignoring the others. So it sounds like this is still very much an open discussion. Would people agree with that? I need responses to that. Wendy?
Yeah, I guess
muted.
what is the next step then in your,
Well, the discussion continues, but I don't want to misrepresent where we are. And this was a reference. So maybe we need to, erase the information that's here next to at large and say the discussion continues. And that's the sense I have right now. People may not have additional comments, but it doesn't sound like we've come to a place of agreement. Seth?
Yeah, if I may, and we all have different opinions of discussion. I think there is pretty resounding agreement for appointment of at-large seats. I think the remaining questions are who's doing the appointment, what the term, what the years in the term is, and if there are criteria. But I think the fact that there should be 3 appointed at-large seats appointed by somebody is pretty clear to me. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Madam Chair.
Joe, do you want to weigh in?
No, I think the conversation is going in a really positive way, and I agree with the appointment. I think that's really wise, and I think that if someone wants to weigh in and give us their value on the candidates going forward, I think that would be important to us. So,
Thank you, Joe. Christina, any final thoughts on this topic?
No, I appreciate leaving the door open for the possibility of the appointments being made by different groups. And hopefully we can continue discussion and have conversation around that with maybe some new ideas coming forward at a later date.
Thank you, Christina. Okay, so moving to the second topic that Barry wanted to introduce, the planning board members. If I remember correctly, his suggestion was that rather than a voted appointment every year, that it be a designated seat, that the persons on the planning board serving in their 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year would automatically be serving on the NP and EDC. I had a similar thought some time ago, and I realized that there's an issue when somebody doesn't serve a 5-year term. So what if you are resigning, 1 year in? If the intent is that the 1st year of a term is not on the NP and EDC, whoever's filling the balance of your term would be in a 2nd year for that term, but the 1st year for that person. I'm not sure if that's a concern, but I just wanted to let everybody think about not every planning board term is a 5-year term filled by the same person. Some of them are partial year terms. Seth?
Thank you. And I had a similar thought. Also, the planning board is free to do their appointments in however way they see fit. So if they want to have a informal internal policy that we appoint people based on the year of their seat on the planning board, so be it. But I don't think we need to enter that into the official criteria of the NP and EDC. We just let them handle it, and if they want to handle it like that, fine. If they want to handle it a different way, that's fine too. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Joe?
thank you, Madam Chair. And to bring Christine up to speed, one of the things I recommended for the planning board was maybe the chair and vice chair, they would be appointed. But as this conversation's gone along, I think that the planning board would, have their own discussion and fight for who would want these 3 seats. So I think whoever comes forward would be based on the planning board's recommendation. So I think we should just let the dogfight happen in the planning board ring. So that's my personal choice. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Joe. Nat?
For the record, Nat Lowell agrees with Seth Engelberg again. in the same meeting. And Joe, but that's not the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Nat. I think Seth has an excellent point. I mean, we
Yep.
don't dictate to any of the other commissions that appoint members to us how they select that member. And the planning board is free to develop their own criteria for that. Yeah, I think it's fine to leave it there. I mean, I'm glad I'm not on the planning board so that I don't have to navigate that. You know? I'm happy to leave it up to them. But, you know, everything is on the table at this point, so the discussion is very important. Nat?
Just one follow-up, Mary, and thank you for the comments. So agreeing to have 3 members to reduce is a big concession, and that's a huge change in this whole makeup. I don't want that to get lost in the whole shuffle here. And especially Christina, she just got on. I don't know if she's had that conversation with anyone. I want her to hear it from me, though, that this is big to get rid of 2. And I didn't support this at the beginning, but I do now wholeheartedly. I think it is healthy. I think it allows for people's lives are different. Some people need a break. Some people have other things they're doing. Like, this is actually a really smart idea to allow for an ebb and flow in a natural way in each individual person's, if there was 3 people from another board on here, there would be the same thing going on. So this is I think this is a really good move, and I just don't want to get lost in this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Nat. Other comments about the planning board memberships? Was there anything else that Barry had on that slot that I forgot to reiterate for you?
You covered it at the beginning, Mary,
Okay.
I think, with the 1-year thing, and then the 5 that Barry brought up, I believe. I kind of think that can still be handled within the planning board. I don't think we should have anything written down in the legislation about the 1st year and the 5th year, I believe is what he was talking about. I think that can be handled internally.
At the planning board.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nat. Okay, other topics for discussion regarding the membership. Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I hope this is the most boring and uncontroversial topic of the night, but Chamber of Commerce, I'd like us to slightly amend this to say the executive director or their staff / board of director designee.
So that's an interesting question. I may call on Leslie Snell. I was not able to reach Peter Burke at the chamber. I did want to speak to him before the meeting. And I'm not familiar, let me put it that way, with how the chamber interacts with their board. And so Leslie, perhaps because of your experience on the chamber board, you can give us a little bit more background on the purpose and the function of their board.
So the chamber board meets with the staff monthly, and they advise them on, general matters, just like you all do with our staff. So I think at the committee meeting, we talked about supporting, sorry, I wasn't really prepared to speak on this. I think that what the board of directors talked about was supporting either one of the board of directors or a staff appointee to represent them on the commission.
Okay, so if I'm interpreting that correctly, and not to cause you to speak for the entire chamber, the chamber's board of directors felt that one of their board members would be able to adequately represent the positions of the chamber on the NPNEDC if they were selected to do so.
Yes.
Okay, that was the point that I wasn't certain on because I'm not familiar with how that board operates. So thank you for that clarification.
And I'll just point out, it's a pretty tight-knit group of board members. I mean, there's a lot of interaction between the board members. There's a lot of interaction between the board as a whole and the staff. So I think that would work just fine. And if something came up where the person, needed to go back to the board, they could certainly do that.
Okay, so I think, I certainly have no objection to expanding the selection to staff or board members. Does anyone else have an opinion on that before we go to Seth? Did anyone else add? Okay, Seth, is back to you.
Thank you. And I know it's a little bit interesting here because we are dealing with organization that has staff and board members. But I just think having that clause that it could either be a staff or a board gives that organization more people and more flexibility to appoint somebody. And again, doing these board appointments is difficult, and staff have full-time jobs. So if nobody on the staff felt that they would be able to do that, it just gives us a additional group of people to be able to fill the seat. Thank you.
Thanks, Seth. Other comments on the membership selection? All right, I do have one question about the planning board. So the planning board has a representative appointed to the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee. And at the moment, that representative is an alternate member of the planning board. And again, I am not familiar with the specific responsibilities and authorities of alternate members of the planning board. Would we want to increase the selection criteria? Would we simply leave it up to the planning board to decide how to select their representative? Do we want to not consider an alternate member of the planning board for a seat on the NP and EDC? I just thought it would be wise to open that for discussion, since it is a potential, as Seth was saying, a way to make the burden a little easier by providing more bodies to potentially fill the seat. Nat or Joe?
Can you repeat that, Mary? I'm so
yeah.
sorry.
So how would we feel if a planning board alternate was proposed for NP and EDC? Would we not want that? Would we welcome that?
Oh,
We
okay.
simply leave it up to the planning board to decide what they wanted to do.
Okay, I thought you were talking about something else. Sorry, is Joe got his hand up first? I'm sorry, Mary.
No, keep going, Snoozy. Wake up.
I know.
Get involved
Dude,
here, kid.
I'm still, never mind. So, okay, the whole issue of the alternate, I think kind of doesn't need to muddy up this process. I think that if something happens to someone during the term, during the 1-year term, the planning board will replace that person probably by the next meeting of the NP of the NRPC. It's going to take me a while to say NRPC, by the way. There's so
You've
many.
got time. This isn't official.
It's going to take me a long time to do that. But anyway, so I don't think we need alternates. And I mean, I just think that needs to be eliminated. I mean, I think we kind of half eliminated it already, but I think that needs to go away.
These aren't alternates and it's so hard because the terms are so close. So forgive me, I'm going to use a name. So I think Abby DiMolina is an alternate planning board member.
Correct.
So would we accept her appointment as the planning board's representative on NPD? Member.
I see. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I didn't pick on Abby, but hers was the first name that came to mind.
No. I didn't get that. So now I have to erase everything that I said from the record for 5 minutes. That's a good one to talk about. So you're saying if there's not 3 full members that want to serve,
Right.
Can an alternate serve? I would say
Right.
yes to that. If that scenario happens, which is unlikely, but it's not impossible, I would say yes to that. I'm sorry, I got totally confused as to what you were saying.
Sorry, it was hard for me to say it, so thank you
Wow.
for.
I'll defer to Joe.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And that I kind of agree with you. One, I would say that we have, and I'll, being biased here, but we have 3 very strong alternates. I don't think that any one of the planning board members or the alternates, if they step forward, would be detrimental. I think it would be a help. And I think that, say there's a project coming forward and I'm going to use, Stephen Welch, and has to do with building and et cetera. And, his expertise maybe comes forward for that year and helps a project or something get defined. And I really feel that, yeah, any one of us could be able to serve on this board and do an exemplary job. So I think it's kind of nice that we would have that opportunity to, find out what the path of the future is going to be of the NPDC each year, and then decide, who do we want to tap or who would step forward and then serve. And I think really bring a set of skill set or expertise forward to the NRPC. So I think that would be really important. And I like this suggestion. I hadn't really thought of it. So
Yeah.
kudos to this idea.
Okay,
Thank
no, I wanted to have that part of the discussion sooner rather than later, if we were in a bind, in the future. Seth, does the Conservation Commission have alternate members?
No, as far as I know, on this current list, the only board that has alternates is the planning board. I don't think any of the others have alternates. And while I have the floor here, I don't have any issue with that. I mean, if alternate members are considered part of the planning board, it's up to the planning board to decide who they send. So no problem by me. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Other comments on that? And would we simply leave it up to the planning board to make their selections and just note that, both the elected members and the alternate members were eligible? Okay, further questions, comments, topics on the membership? We will continue the discussion. And I guess we will go to the next item on the agenda, which I believe we do have discussion of next steps. I think that is primarily that we will continue the discussion, but let's just take a peek at the transition calendar. And I'm not sure if there's anything we need to discuss on that. I'm guessing not, because we don't have the specific seats yet. So I did, if we can scroll down on the screen, I did try to write a universal statement that would cover the transition. The difficulty is because this has to go to the state legislature, we don't know when they would take action. And so it's hard to say, particularly in the case of an election, if we end up with elected seats, to specify the next election, because it's possible that it could go through the state legislature before an election, but after the returning the papers to submit for a seat had happened. So the timing could be a little dicey. So I tried to write this as sort of a universal statement at the July meeting immediately after the petition is adopted by the state. All of the one-year terms would be appointed or reappointed, including new seats and replacing the planning board seats. I hoped that would cover any eventuality, but I would appreciate if anybody can, think of ways that it wouldn't work, that we might need to tweak that. And that remains open for consideration. Seth?
Yeah, I think it generally works. as long as the NRPC July meeting is after all the meetings, like later in the calendar than all the meetings of the boards making appointments.
It-
It generally is, but we
Yeah.
just have to make sure that it is every year to deal with
Well,
that.
every board has the opportunity to change their appointment at any time. So from that respect, yes, but we've already made a change in the bylaws. It used to be that the June meeting was our annual meeting where we appointed, excuse me, where we accepted appointments from the other boards. And what we found was that those boards were generally newly appointed in June and perhaps had not met to make a selection. So we moved that process for NPNEDC to July to accommodate the calendars of other boards. So we could certainly pick any particular ones. We could pick August, we could pick January, you know, it doesn't really matter, but July I picked because that is already our annual meeting when we anticipate seats turning over.
Yes, thank you. I'm just specifically talking about like in July, like for instance, in the Concom terms go till June 30th, and then we have bi-weekly meetings, but I don't know some of these other meeting schedules like Housing Authority or Land Bank or whatever. So it's possible that they could have a meeting in July that would be later in July than the NRPC meeting. So just putting a pin in there to try to have our meeting be as late in the month as possible every July. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that is something we've already experienced. But again, I think we also have in the bylaws that an individual filling a seat can remain in that seat until replaced. So that's another option for the continuity of having a body in a seat. But thank you for the comments. Trying to make this straightforward. It's never easy, but at least straightforward. Okay, if there are any other comments, we do have on the agenda membership composition, term length, term limits, and discussion of next steps. So the floor is open for that if anybody has a further comment. And if not, our next meeting, as noted, is Monday, March 25th at 5 p.m. And we'll take a motion to adjourn. I love how this board never jumps to adjourn. I got that motion out of you.
So moved.
Thank you, Andy. Can we have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. I think that was.
Yes.
Seth Borg,
Aye.
Wendy Hudson,
Aye.
Christina Jalamy,
Aye.
Matt Lowell. Nat, you're muted.
Aye, sorry. Thank
No
you.
problem.
Aye.
And Mary Longacre, aye. Thank you. See you in a few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.